Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing good. Thank you so much for stopping by today to see me. um, Today's video is on just some nutrition considerations with ALS, or for ALS rather. So ALS is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or more commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. It is a disease that impacts the motor neurons of the brain and spinal cord, which can lead to issues with speaking, eating, moving, and breathing. So it's definitely, unfortunately, a very terrible disease, and there's no cure at this point in time. There are medications, I think, out there, at least one I know of, Riluzole, that can kind of help with the prognosis. It's not a cure or anything like that, unfortunately, but hopefully someday there will be a cure. I hope. There's more research going on, so hopefully someday there will be a cure. But unfortunately, the majority of individuals die from respiratory failure within the first 3 to 5 years of the time that they start experiencing experiencing the symptoms of the disease. So just a little kind of background of the disease. Now, one thing that is very common with ALS is malnutrition. There's various causes to why individuals become malnourished, and one is dysphagia, so swallowing difficulty with the disease, because of course the muscles of the mouth and the throat, the esophagus, all of that become weak. So swallowing difficulties can occur. Of course, that impacts your ability to eat enough food. Chewing impairment, again, the muscles in the mouth, the oral cavity will weaken as well, so that will lead to difficulties with chewing food. Difficulty with self-feeding, so obviously, so the muscles that are impacted are voluntary muscles. So your hands, your wrists, your arms, those are all, obviously you need those to feed yourself. So the weakening of those muscles can obviously cause issues with feeding yourself. There's also fatigue at meals. People oftentimes can complain of just being tired, meal times taking a long time, it takes a lot of energy to eat meals, so that can certainly impact, again, your ability to eat enough. And then one of the interesting things with ALS is the increase in energy expenditure. So your metabolism is actually higher. I think it's at least 10% higher than comparing it to someone who does not have ALS. So that's definitely an really interesting aspect of ALS. So high metabolism or hypermetabolism, that's definitely something a lot of people experience. So actually about 50% of individuals who are diagnosed with ALS experience hypermetabolism. So of course, malnutrition and all of the previous things I mentioned as far as what causes malnutrition can lead to weight loss. It can lead to a reduction in functional status, and it can also worsen the outcomes of the disease. So it's super important to be well nourished and consider your diet and nourishment when it comes to ALS. So I just want to touch on a few other things as far as dysphagia goes, the swallowing impairment that comes with ALS. Like I mentioned, kind of I already touched on, but it impacts the amount of food people are able to eat, of course, with swallowing difficulty. So you're not eating as much. There's also reduction in the quality of life. So, thinking that, you can't just eat the foods that you're used to eating. You have to be, restrictive in a way and eat only foods that you're able to swallow safely. So that can impact your quality of life. You can't just go out to a restaurant and eat with your family the same food that they can eat. So that's something to think about. There's, again, the social aspect of eating when it comes to that. So again, people have a fear of going to a restaurant and eating because they're afraid they're gonna choke. So it's just, that's something that's just really a negative part to the dysphagia side of things. And then one thing I really urge people to do, individuals who have ALS, is to work very closely with the speech language pathologist as well as a mental health professional. It's super important. And I'm just considering the dysphagia aspect of the disease. So definitely encourage that. There's multidisciplinary clinics that are very widespread in our country, so definitely get connected with one of those. They have a huge, great team of experts in the field that will help you. So one thing is when it comes to, the worsening of swallowing, so the worsening or progressing of the disease and the dysphagia that comes with it, a lot of patients will ask or will lead to getting a feeding tube. Very common. I don't know the percentage of patients, but it's very, very common. And the feeding tube, there's not a lot of research out there, but there is some that does support that it may benefit survival. But the timing of placement is just not, there's not a certain time or certain knowledge on that of when an individual should have a feeding tube placed. So that's not really well understood. There is also some research on using high calorie tube feeding formulas, and if that's something that can actually benefit the individual. But again, more research is needed in that part of regarding tube feeding formula. So one thing I want to talk about too is just the complementary and alternative methods that people use, or CAM, complementary and alternative medicine. There's really nothing that's recommended as far as that goes. There's a lot of patients that I've met that have, wanted to try certain like supplements and even some crazy diets out there, like the ketogenic diet, or even a gluten-free diet. But there's also one protocol that comes to mind called the Deanna protocol. And unfortunately, there's just no research to really support the efficacy of that protocol in helping people with ALS. So it's never something that I actually recommended. Again, more research needs to be done. There is a link I will post down below. It's called ALS Untangled, or it's the website ALS Untangled. And there's a whole team of research, medical experts who do research and stuff on a whole bunch of different therapies, protocols, supplements, all kinds of things. So I love that website. I love the team behind that. So I definitely encourage you to check that out, because they do touch on a lot of different things people are interested in when they find out they're diagnosed with ALS. So a lot of things out there that people like to try that are just unfortunately not proven to help ALS or reduce the severity of the disease or to cure it even. And so definitely check that out. So lastly, I wanted to just talk about some of the things that I recommended to patients with ALS as far as diet and nutrition goes. So first and foremost, just consuming a balanced diet is super important. That's something we should all be doing, really. So there's nothing special about that. But there really isn't any special specific diet that I ever recommended. Certain things to consider though was a high protein, high calorie diet. So the reason for that is because, again, we want to combat that malnutrition, the weight loss, that we want to fight the hypermetabolism that comes with ALS. So consuming a diet that's higher in calories will help. And then with that, it's actually been shown, I think there's some research to show that having a higher BMI, so basically being overweight and slightly obese, there's kind of a protective impact that might have in helping to promote longevity with the disease. So something to keep in mind. Now, the high protein part comes into play because we want to prevent the muscle breakdown, which comes with ALS. Unfortunately, there's no way of preventing it, but there is a way of trying to fight it, and consuming an adequate amount of protein will help prevent your body from basically breaking down its own muscle tissue and protein stores in your body. So that's super important when it comes to ALS. So high protein, high calorie diet is something I definitely recommend it to everybody. Interestingly, there has been some research out there to show that a diet that is high in antioxidants, as well as carotenes, is associated with better function with the disease. So that's super, super interesting. So basically eating foods, that are rich in antioxidants, like our plants, or, plant-based foods. So fruits and vegetables, whole grains, those foods are beneficial for that. So carotenes are more, or carotenoids, I think is another way to say it, are in fruits and vegetables. So keep that in mind. So again, this is something we should all really be doing, not just individuals with ALS. We should all be eating a diet like this. One last thing is, a lot of times I got questions about supplementing with creatine. Definitely an interesting supplement, excuse me, because we know it helps with building muscle. But there really has not been a lot of research out there to support that it can benefit ALS and, again, reduce the prognosis or severity of the disease. Excuse me, cough will itch my throat. But yeah, so, and there was research to show that it does not help improve fatigue, it doesn't help improve strength, and it doesn't help improve respiratory capacity. So, so just something to think about. A lot of people are interested in creatine, but it's not very effective in that regard. So that's it. I just wanted to touch on those things. And sorry, I've got like a tickle in my throat. Oh my goodness. Have some water. But anyway, that's it. If you have any questions, please ask down below. Definitely happy to answer any questions on this topic. So yeah, so I appreciate you guys stopping by. Thank you so much for watching the video and for supporting me and my channel. I really appreciate it. And if you're interested in nutrition and health, please consider subscribing to my channel. As always, woohoo, and put a thumbs up there on that little thumbs up down below. Click that thumbs up for me. All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming by. I am looking forward to seeing you again very soon. All right, take care. Bye.